Hey everyone, this is Jerry and welcome to the episode number 1 of Ask Photo Doc. I thought I'd experiment with some video answers to some questions that we're getting on our forum discussions. This is for the meetup group of photographers at Abacoa. Okay, Bill asked a couple of questions. The first one was about mirror lockup, and the second one was about automatic exposure bracketing. So I thought in both cases they were ideal to try to demonstrate them in a video presentation. So first let's take a look at mirror lockup. Why would you even bother using mirror lockup? Well, normally you don't need it. In general shooting, everything works just fine. The only time you really have to worry about it is when you're using a very long telephoto lens or maybe a very extreme close-up macro lens. When any kind of tiny movement, such as the mirror slapping around inside of your camera, could actually cause a little bit of vibration, and it might show up in your photo, especially on longer exposures. So normally you don't need to use it, but if you do have an occasion where you think it may be necessary, let's take a look at how do you set up mirror lockup on the Canon cameras. Okay, we're now looking at the back of the Canon 7D, the LCD screen, which is currently displaying the quick control screen. Quick control allows me to rapidly and easily change a lot of shooting functions directly from the back screen. There are also controls on the top of the camera, but this displays them very conveniently for us so we can see what we're doing. Now, if you want to use the mirror lockup function, you have to know where it's located, and it's not available through the quick control screen. It's on the main menu. So I'm going to press the menu button, and as you can see, there are a lot of different areas here where settings are grouped together. You have to know where it's located, and by looking that up in my manual, I see that it's located under the custom functions. The custom functions are divided into 4 different groups, and custom function 3, the autofocus and drive settings, is where mirror lockup is located. So if I press the set button on the back of my camera, I'm already at the correct location. It's number 13. The other 12 settings have to do with a lot of the autofocus adjustments. And by default, mirror lockup will be disabled. You can see that it's displayed in blue as disabled. If I press the set button again, it highlights it, and if I turn the wheel on the back of the camera, I can go to enable and press the set button again, and you can see that it's now turned on. Okay, if I go back to my shooting menu, let's see how the mirror lockup function works. Now I'm going to press the shutter release. You probably heard the autofocus beep confirm that it's focused, and you also heard a sound that's the mirror lifting up, locking up out of the way. It hasn't taken the picture yet. I have to press the shutter function one more time. Okay, and now it takes the picture, gives me a brief preview, and then it goes back to my shooting menu. Okay, and of course the reverse process would be to go back into the menu system, go back to custom function 13, hit the set button, turn the wheel, and put it back to disable, and I'm back to my normal operation. And again, just to compare it, now if I press the shutter button one time, oops, I'm in high-speed mode, but it didn't lift the mirror up before the shot. it simply took the shot, actually a couple of shots, because I was in high-speed mode. Okay, so there's the difference, and that's how you access it. Okay, so that's the mirror lockup function. And just to clarify it a little bit further, even if you're mounted on a tripod, and again, if you have a long telephoto lens, by that mirror slapping up in normal operation, it can throw the vibration into your lens just a tiny little bit. And if you're on a high telephoto magnification or a high macro magnification, it's possible that it's going to show up. Okay, so the other question that Bill had was regarding automatic exposure bracketing. And exposure bracketing probably originally started out as an attempt to make sure that the exposure that gets taken is exactly right. You underexpose a little bit, overexpose a little bit, and see if you get the exact setting that you're looking for. However, more recently, another purpose for exposure bracketing is high dynamic range, HDR photos, which require multiple photos of the same scene but exposed at very low levels, medium levels, and high levels. So let's take a look at how the automatic exposure bracketing could be used. Okay, now we're going to demonstrate how exposure bracketing can be set up and used, and then demonstrate how it actually works. So if you look at the back of the screen right now, I'm going to press the Q button, and you notice that it highlights exposure compensation. Okay, I can use the wheel on the back of my camera to go down -2, -1, or I can go up to +1 or +2, and that will change the exposure compensation. If I want to get a bracketed shot, I'm going to need to go to the menu system. Okay, I have to know where it's located again, so you have to look this up in your particular camera to see where it's located. And on the Canon 7D, it's on the second menu from the left. It's called Exposure Compensation / AEB, Automatic Exposure Bracketing. So if I press the Set button on the back of the screen, I can simply turn the wheel, and just like I did on the Quick Control menu, I can set exposure compensation. But if I use the wheel on the top of the camera, it's called the Quick Control wheel, and if I turn it to the right, you can see that I can choose additional exposure settings. I can have a total of 3 of them. Let's set it to a -2, 0, and a +2. If I press the Set button, it takes effect. You can see it on the menu system here. And you can also see it displayed on the Quick Control screen with the -2, 0, and +2 being displayed. Okay, so now it needs to take 3 shots. And I'm going to hold my shutter button down. I'm in high-speed mode, so I should get 3 shots. Okay. You don't want to release the shutter button, and well, you could release the shutter button and take 1 at a time, but to get it over with, let's just hold the shutter button down, and it took 3 shots. If I review the pictures that I took, here's the third one. We're going to move backwards. Okay, this one is a bit overexposed. Okay, here's the medium exposure, neutral at 0. And if I go back one more picture, here was the first one that was taken, which is 2 stops underexposed. You can see it displayed at the top of my screen. Okay, so there is the automatic exposure bracketing. Now, we can also combine exposure compensation and the bracketing together. So let's go to our menu system and watch what happens when I turn the back wheel. Okay, it moves the settings as a group. So if I wanted to underexpose, let's say the neutral setting being -3, it'll also go down to -5 and -1. Okay, and again, if I hit set and I press the shutter button, it takes 3 shots with those settings. Now you could combine a number of these together. If you wanted to get a sequence that had a much greater dynamic range, for example, for your HDR pictures, you could start with underexposures, come up to a medium exposure, and then bring it a little bit higher here, let's say for overexposures. Okay? Now you could take a set of pictures, you could get a group of 3 or 6 or 9 individual settings, and you could step through them properly by using the exposure compensation and automatic bracket shooting together. Okay, to remove that, I go back here to 0 in the center, and I turn the top wheel on the camera to the left until it disappears, and then push the set button. Okay, and when I go back to my quick menu, here it is, it's showing again the exposure will be taken at a value of 0. Alright, there you have it. Those are the 2 questions that we received from Bill regarding mirror lockup and automatic exposure bracketing. Now, I deliberately tried to limit the amount of time, and I see from my editing that I'm already getting up to 12, 13, 14 minutes here, and we're trying to keep it manageable. And I would encourage any of you that have questions that any of this raises to please follow up. Let me know if there's something else that I need to explain a little bit better, or some other questions. Please post them in the forum discussion, and I'll be glad to look up an answer for you. If I can demonstrate it in video, I'll give that another try. I noticed as I was editing the video here, my audio levels were all over the map, high and low. We'll get that fine-tuned, and it should work out fine. So, see you at the meeting, and probably have a lot more to discuss. Bye for now.